All right, everyone, we have very, very good news, which is that the war in Afghanistan is now, effectually, it's over. We're drawing down our troop presence in that nation to 2,500 men. That's not a war at that point. That's more of an advisory system. It's like we're not really at war in Syria. I don't think we should have any troops there since they're not welcome. In Afghanistan, it's slightly different because the acting government there doesn't have a problem with us. When you get to the point, though, where to try to maintain order, you're negotiating with the Taliban, I can see it being problematic. Now, keep in mind what Afghanistan represents. Number one, it's a war that's gone on for 20 years. They call it America's longest war. Technically, Korea is, however. There was never any true peace treaty there, just a ceasefire. People need to understand that war has been going on since the mid-50s. Second longest war in U.S. history. Longest active shooting war at this point, as opposed to a stalemate conflict as in the DMZ. It represents 2/3 of my lifespan that we've been in this godforsaken hellhole riddled with Taliban recruits. We've accomplished essentially nothing other than installing a very weak government that at any given time could collapse, which is reasonably friendly to our interests for the most part. Now, while that's maybe positive, and it's better than, the Taliban running everything, that government, in truth, and this is the one thing the neocons are getting right, will collapse if we completely leave. That's why you have a small contingency of troops left. It's basically just to tell the other guys, don't try to overthrow the government because you'll end up in a firefight with our troops, and then we'll have to go in and kill you all. It's sort of like an insurance policy. Now, what's the cost of 2,500 men being supplied and so forth? A little bit higher in a landlocked nation. That's number one. Number two, it probably does pay off in economic terms, but it's not really a war. At that point, it's leaving a small contingency behind basically as a warning not to fuck with the government that we've installed. Do I support continuing any presence there? Only as peacekeepers. Only in coordination with the government. Again, though, that's perfectly fine. At that point, it stops being a war. When we're conducting all sorts of operations out in the middle of the wilderness, we are essentially conducting war. At the very least, it would be a conflict. Congrats to Trump for doing this. It's long overdue. And by the way, can I please remark upon the strategic importance of this? Because I know exactly what he's doing. He's possibly, and we're not sure, especially with the Wayne County results that we just got, they're going to have to hand audit every result from the Detroit area in Michigan. I have a feeling that Michigan's going to flip for Trump if there's a fair recount, and courts are going to get involved, so we'll see what happens. Still got a recount in Georgia. That would pretty much seal the deal. I expect SCOTUS to take up the Pennsylvania case. It was funny, the Pennsylvania Supreme Court refused. That doesn't mean that SCOTUS will refuse. Keeping that in mind, what happens with the election aside, if Trump loses, if Biden is legitimately coronated in this rigged process, if the electors fall for the joke, basically, Biden will then have a very unpleasant task ahead of him in the immediate wake of being put in place on January 20th. He then has to decide, am I going to send thousands and thousands of men back into Afghanistan, looking to the leftists who are praising this? They don't want a single U.S. troop left in Afghanistan by and large. Do I alienate the left? Like, he's already alienated them by, I think in his green energy panel, isn't one of the people he put on that, like basically a former oil exec? It should give you a bit of bellwether of things to come. Be prepared to be tiger-fucked, leftists, if he gets in there. You're better off with Trump, policy-wise. What happens is Biden gets in there. He either has to go along with the neoliberals and the neocons who are saying put the troops back, or he has to respect the wishes of the younger, more dynamic part of his constituency that will rail on him if he does so. And then it'll make Trump look like the peacemaker. Trump is essentially, if this is an insurance policy in case he loses, this is for 2024. Trump is already the front runner of the Republican primary field for 2024 if he does lose. It's possible we could have a second-term, non-consecutive Trump situation if Biden gets in there. It is not outside of the realm of possibility. Look for Trump over the next month or so to lay as many traps for Biden as possible, forcing him into a corner whereby he has to make shitty policy decisions that will completely undercut that core fan base that got aboard with him and held his nose. If they swing back to Trump in 2024, he wins. That's what Trump is doing. Of course he wants a second term. By the way, he would be the same age as Biden is now, so nobody can play the age card. Hell, if Biden runs again, he'd be 82 fucking years old. I don't think that that's likely. I think that Kamala Harris will accidentally push him down the stairs or something like that if he gets in there. I think he'll be a half-termer at most. But anyway, it's funny to see all the morons like Dan Crenshaw freak out. There are people who want him to run for the presidency. Dude, the only reason that you like the dude is he has an eye patch. That's really goddamn it. What qualifications does the fucker have? He's viciously pro-war, massively globalistic. Fuck the dude. He's just a cult of personality member. I love it. Dan Crenshaw is sort of like Tucker Carlson there. People still think that he's not a sellout. Anyway, it's funny to watch the same people who are like gung-ho for war in 2000, like the Bushites, like the Cheney types, Jeb and all these people, being the same as like Pelosi and Schumer. They're all beating the drums of war saying, oh no, it's not the time to draw. When will the time be to draw down our forces in Afghanistan? Can please somebody tell me that? If now's not the time, when is? 20 years from now? When we spend another $100 billion maintaining our presence? 100 years from now? Never? I think never is the answer that the neocons are going for. They never want to leave. They essentially want to have enough troops in the country to take out the government at a whim if they want to. That's basically the goal. It's not to protect the government so much as to coerce the government there. 2,500 men and something like 12,000, a little bit different in terms of their force capabilities. We don't need that many men in there. We shouldn't be doing any active operations anyway. The Taliban, for all intents and purposes, already runs the outlands of Afghanistan. The government there controls a few urban centers and some military assets. That's basically what they control. We have been literally negotiating with Al-Qaeda for the last few years. Now, we were told that they were Satan incarnate back in the 2000s. And by the way, it was funny to me, and if you read the declassified portion of the 9/11 report, it became even funnier because this was corroborated. A man from Saudi Arabia, from a royal family no less, commanding a bunch of other people from the Arabian Peninsula, does 9/11, and all of a sudden we invade Afghanistan. The place where Osama apparently wasn't for very long anyway. He had gone over into Pakistan, where we have a significant diplomatic presence, but nobody ever knew what was going on. Remember when Benazir Bhutto warned us about these things, and she mysteriously died not long after? Do you think there might have been a little bit of shenanigans going on over there? A little bit of palace intrigue? I certainly do. We were warned what was going on. We were warned that Osama was over there in Pakistan and never acted. They liked the fact that he was still alive so that they could use his propaganda tapes as a reason to expand our presence in Afghanistan and also in a disconnected fashion into Iraq. Then they knock him off finally, well, supposedly because we've never seen the body or any pictures of it. John McCain, by the way, the most trustworthy man in the world, swears he saw it. He was very, very happy. He was probably beating off the picture. He gets tossed in the drink, and then all of a sudden, we start dicking around elsewhere too. All of a sudden, shortly thereafter, Syria and Egypt and Tunisia and all of these other countries. Again, U.S. foreign policy is totally, it's not imperialistic either. It's not to try to take over the world or anything like that. It's essentially about money. It's essentially about, Afghanistan, you're controlling the heroin supply. Oh, that's really wonderful. One reason to draw down, now that fentanyl is on the market from China, the heroin, I guess, is less popular. Fentanyl, it kills people faster and is crazier. So, they decided heroin wasn't good enough, so they had to invent something better. It's sort of like how crack was invented. Oh, this cocaine stuff is great. I want something that's going to fry my brain 10 times faster. It's like marijuana versus dabbing or spice or something like that. Yeah, I extracted pure THC, and now I'm going to shoot it into my veins. Wow, what a rush. People are nuts. But I mean, come on. There's no reason for us to be in Afghanistan. Again, a landlocked nation about as geographically far away from the mainland United States as you can physically get on a spherical surface. And yet we've got this massive presence there, and we've had it for 20 years. What have we accomplished? We own some poppy fields. Again, Chinese fentanyl is flooding the market. The heroin's no longer worth it. We might as well burn the poppy fields and put up laboratories to make our own U.S. brand fentanyl to compete with the Chinese. Why don't we do that? That's about all. Peace out.